Good morning, LBC Radio. My name is Corey Rosen, and I'm with the Story Podcast today. I have on two super awesome guests, but before we get into that, we have some merchandise for sale. If you want to support us, we have stickers and hoodies with the logo on the front and the first 50 guests on the back. That includes these two gentlemen, the Kaleidoscope. Ben Roth is from Nazareth PA, and Jon Smith is from York PA. And they've been at their current location in Lancaster for almost 8 years, recording bands from in and outside the central PA area, and they've hosted bands playing live shows in the studio from all over the U.S. and a few from outside the U.S. Ben, Jon, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. So, and this is a question for either of you. What got you inspired to do music? What was it that got you really into doing music? Was it like making your own mixtapes as a kid, or what was it?
For me, it was a lot of different reasons, but it sort of felt like a thing that I had to do. And I just really, loved working together with, my closest friends and creating and just having a good time. And, after a couple of years of trying to do like the normal thing and think about what career I was going to go into, it just seemed like the move to stick with music, and here we are.
Yeah. Does it sound same for you?
Mine was a similar story in Nazareth, PA, making mixtapes off the radio, playing a couple instruments as a kid. My folks were both musical and supported me to get into it and my enthusiasm for it. And it just kind of unfolded naturally, kept at it, and it became a job.
That's awesome. So did you guys go for college for this stuff, or was it just a natural progression of learning?
I went to community college after high school for audio recording, and then played in a couple bands that got to do some touring and recording with some engineers that were really inspiring to me and got me excited about the process.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me as well. Went to community college for a short time, and the goal being to start a studio and figure out how to make all that work. And, by the time I was done with my associate's degree, I met Ben and we started the Kaleidoscope. So there was like no gap in between, but, learned a lot through that and learned a lot together, throughout the years, just doing it and picking stuff up along the way.
So did you guys both do it on your own first and then come together, or like did you record your own bands or your own stuff, or?
Yeah, we both started separately from each other, but most of our experience has happened together in the same room. So that's been really cool to, have somebody to figure stuff out with and grow with and,
I'm sure,
shoot ideas back and forth with.
I'm sure doubling out the rent is probably a lot nicer too.
That's one of the reasons that, it started out that way anyway, because it was like, we went into it with, whatever gear I have, whatever gear you have, throw it all in a room, see what we got, see what we need. We took it all on and had no like initial debt or anything to go with it. So, we compiled all of our resources, and that was enough to get started right away.
That's awesome. So how did you start getting the word out that you guys were a studio and a recording studio?
Between the two of us, we know a lot of like-minded local folks who play music. So just posting a lot on social media about the space, bringing people into the space around town, like going out and seeing bands that we like, talking to them about our space. Oh, cool, we're like 2 blocks away if you want to come check it out. We were hosting shows for a while, and that brought in a lot of people from the general area who probably otherwise wouldn't have seen the space. So, get them in there to see their friend's band or someone like that. And they're like, oh, cool. I had no idea this was here. What is it? Oh, well, it's a studio. You want to check out some of our stuff? It's right here. Yeah, sort of snowballed.
That's actually one of the reasons that we ever started hosting live bands there, was to get, different bands and different people in to see the space. But a lot of it's definitely just introducing yourself and showing people the space and showing them what you do, and trying to see if you're a good fit to work together with somebody. We actually have a session today with somebody that I just worked on one song mastering a while back, and I just really love the song, and I was like, hey, why don't you come out to the studio and I'll show you around. Maybe we can, have a beer, and showed him some work, and he loved what he saw and loved what he heard. So, we booked a bunch of days this week with him, and we've been working with him as well. So it's just simply, wanting to talk to people.
Yeah, it's
A lot of word of mouth as well.
Yeah.
Projects that we've worked on are people that have had a good experience who would recommend us to family or friends. And just that's been a big help as well. We haven't done much in the way of traditional advertising or
Like none, like never
business
once.
cards or flyers or anything like that. It's all just kind of been like people in the know talking about it and sending more our way.
We still got to put our website together.
Yes, the
Oh,
Level
yeah.
website. Our Spotify playlist, I think, suffices.
That's our website.
Yep.
That's everything you need to know.
Yeah, if you want to check out their Spotify playlist, definitely check out. It's in the description, also with their Facebook page and all that other jazz for sure. So how do you guys know who's a good fit for you guys? How do you decipher that? Is it in terms of style? Is it in terms of just the people themselves, or what?
I'd say,
Combination.
yeah, it's like a style and philosophy for me. Because even if I love the style, if you don't mesh with the people specifically, it can still be kind of a hard fit. But there's all kinds of different things that go into it.
I think generally I can find something I like in almost any project as long as the people feel like good people, no like misogynistic or racist or homophobic vibes. Other than that, I could pretty much find anything enjoyable to work with or find something that I like about any project.
What are you guys' favorite parts of a project? Like is it the recording? Is it the mastering? Is it the mixing?
For me, it's definitely been mixing lately, but it's something that, I don't know, kind of comes across very like solving a puzzle like, and I really like that aspect of it. Having something, needing to get to a certain point and figuring out how to do that. It's been really like challenging and gratifying for me.
My favorite part is usually tracking and, trying out different instruments or different ways of performing a take until we find something that really excites everybody and makes everybody feel good. That's sort of my favorite part of the process.
For those who don't know, explain to me the process of recording a song. Like what is the process of how do you get an idea into a track?
So sometimes there's essentially two ways. There's like the casual way, which is, somebody comes in with a song, they just kind of like tell us about it or show us a demo, and we do our best to recreate that idea as they see it right away. And then there's one way to do it where there's pre-production involved, where we'll hear the songs, they'll play the songs, we'll talk about them, we'll adjust structure, throw out different ideas, and really like start to wrap our head around what needs to happen every step of the way. So then from there, there's usually demos that happen, whether it's just like on a cell phone or more solidified demos, and then start building from there, start tracking the drums, and then everything else gets done separately to that until the whole idea is realized. And usually there's time towards the end to listen through and see if there's any last like finishing touches of auxiliary percussion or synths or anything else to throw at it. And it's like the more extensive way, but usually the way that results in the best, possible product at the end.
Yeah. I feel like for me personally, the most gratifying experience is where an artist comes in and rather than just say like, here's what I want to do, here's the demo, I'm going to recreate the demo in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone who's really down to reimagine a couple parts or add additional parts and let us kind of put our touches on it. The collaborative atmosphere that exists in that kind of space makes it really fun.
That's awesome. So do you guys work with like total bands or single acts and fill out the band, or
All of it.
Yeah, it's not. I'd say most of the time it's a full band and everybody has their instrument that they play, and it's a big group effort, but sometimes it's, one person that has an idea but doesn't have a band. And, we'll usually, hire a friend to, play drums, and, we'll play some bass, some guitar, some synths. It becomes like a communal thing where like, oh, who would be great to play this, and then we, ask that person if they can come in, or if there's like a specific instrument, just like see what's out there and kind of make it like a communal thing, which is fun.
Yeah, at this point, we're in touch with a lot of artists that we trust to come in on a moment's notice and nail it,
That's awesome.
no matter what the style or instrument or song or whatever is. So that's been helpful.
It's incredible that you've made a space where you can ask people on the whim, and they're just like, yeah, man, of course. And they come in and they just knock it out of the park. It's incredible to work with musicians like that, because you learn so much. Guests we've had previously, like, have you ever guys met Robin Chambers at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, she will kill it no matter what. No matter what's playing, she's going to kill it. Henry Dvorak, you know him?
What's the name?
Henry Dvorak, upright bass player.
I don't know Henry.
No? Oh, you don't know Henry? Henry's awesome. He's a bass player. Liam Galliano is another bass player. You don't know him?
That
You
one
guys gotta
doesn't
know
sound
these
familiar either. I mean, if Robin is what you're describing as these
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
someone who can sit down and hear it and just know what to do, then those are absolutely the kinds of people that we look for to get involved in projects.
Right. And we have like a pretty decent Rolodex of go-tos, but it seems like it keeps growing. So
We're looking at you, Liam. What's his last name?
Liam Galliano.
Yeah, right on.
He's an amazing jazz. I would consider him a jazz bassist.
Cool.
nice.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, so do you guys play your own music? Do you guys make your own music? Or is it mainly just whatever comes in?
For me, I used to do a lot more of my own stuff, but over the last couple of years, the focus has definitely been more on projects that are coming into the studio. We play in a band, a couple projects together, I guess. So we're still doing our own original stuff, but a lot of time is taken by the work that comes in, and that's the priority because it's what pays the bills mostly.
Tell me more about your individual band projects.
Ben and I play together in a band called You Mean Everyone We Know. And that's something that we just put a record out last year. And we have a tour coming up at the end of the month for a couple of weeks on the East Coast. And it's like, pop rock. And then we play in a band called Adam and the Wait lately, which hasn't been as active, but might have a few things coming up.
And where can people find the first or second projects at, so they can follow updates?
You'll find them in the link.
Find them in the link.
We'll link you.
Put them in the show notes.
Put them in
Yeah.
the show notes. Absolutely. So tell me some of the tips and tricks as you guys have learned over the years of how to. Surely it takes a long time to make a track, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the tips and tricks that you have learned along the way that have helped you shorten that time, but still get a good quality product?
I don't know if it's a trick necessarily, but a tip is to like be aware of your scope, and like not obsess about something that in the end won't matter as much. So it's like everything has to be completed at some point, whether it feels like it's complete or not. No song is ever like 100%, it feels like. But at some point, you have to know when it's time to move on to the next step, or when it's time to, just say this is done and then move on. Even if it's like not 100%, but you've learned something that you can apply later on down the road. It's easy to get caught up, changing something about a song every month and then just being like, this isn't good enough, and then just feel like you need to keep changing it over and over again because you're never going to get stuff done and out that way.
For me, it's been a practice of really trying to identify influences that the artist is bringing into their songs to sort of find some middle ground. Like, all right, this song's reminding me of blah, and they'll say like, oh yeah, like I love that band or I love that song. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I go home that night and I listen to that stuff and I really try to find the influence or the direction in that artist's song that is reminiscent of that influence, and try to sort of like take it from there to add to it to best serve the song.
Hmm. Tell me some of the more fun moments that you guys have had, whether they be accidents or just all out jams or what have you.
Oh man, it's a pretty it's a sort of a vortex of good times. It's 8 years has gone pretty quick. Been a lot of good times.
I mean, for me, that would probably be the pre-pandemic New Year's shindigs that we would have.
Hmm.
That was always like a whirlwind of all kinds of different things going on with comedians and bands and friends and just seeing everybody and having a good time and seeing everybody have a good time.
Yeah, New Year's bashes are definitely at the top of my list. And pre-pandemic, we used to do a lot more social stuff. We would have record nights. We would have open jams. Yeah, it was just an open door of like-minded folks coming in to spend time with us, enjoy the space, make stuff with us, and it all felt great.
So what was it like when the pandemic hit? How did you guys react to that? What did you guys do?
Well, the first big change was that we stopped hosting shows, which, as we mentioned previously, was like a great way to sort of build goodwill for the space and introduce the community to the space. But we couldn't, pack a bunch of people into a small room anymore. So that sort of changed the way we started approaching what we did there, even the way we laid out the space. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. It kind of seems like, with everything, everything moves in like small little steps. And it seemed like when that happened, it was just like, went from all to nothing. And then we just kind of like figured out what we were comfortable with, moving forward from there and, how to make sure the space was clean and make sure we're having distancing opportunities for people and just kind of trying to figure it out from there. And, we built back up the studio and session side of it, but, never quite got the other social stuff back.
Mm.
It wasn't like a calculated thing or anything, but, just kind of never quite made it back.
It seems like at the point where COVID hit and we had to sort of restructure the way we were doing everything, at that point, most people who really like wanted or needed to know that we existed did already. Not that, everyone knows that a studio exists in Lancaster or whatever, but we'd done a pretty solid job, I think, at that point of climbing the mountain of like establishing that it was a thing. And now we're able to, I don't want to say coast, but a lot of that initial work still like did what it was supposed to and has paid off and brings people to our space to work, which is why we were there in the first place.
Did you guys have to ever move to virtual like sessions when someone just send you something and no?
Not extensively. There's definitely a couple of things that did end up being done a little bit differently, but not anything out of the ordinary. But for the most part, for the short time that we were shut down, we were just shut down.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Yeah.
I took one day to come into the studio and pack up a bunch of keyboards and drum machines and guitar stuff because I knew that we were going to be locked down for a couple weeks. So, enough to keep myself occupied for a couple weeks. We did find more artists that were doing home recordings in that time that would then come to us for mixing stuff to sort of finish up their projects. And that was sort of a big question on my mind is, if no one can play music, if everyone's locked down, like, is there really a need for a recording studio? And in that instance, people who took that time to take some first steps into getting into recording their own stuff or whatever still ended up looking for, a more professional ear or touch to finish up the process, which put us into play.
And then for me, at the very beginning of like when everything shut down for the pandemic, I was in the hospital for a non-COVID related, non-life threatening thing that, lasted about, I was in the hospital for about a month. And all went well, but it, definitely took my mind away from like, what can I do at the studio during this time to, keep going and be productive, but also, distance from people. So that was an interesting time for me as well. Yeah.
So I have my own home studio. I have a degree in composition myself. One of the things that have always confused me as a producer is mastering, because it's
I am once again asking, what is mastering?
Isn't that always a struggle? A little bit.
It is. The way that I always explain it to people is like most people understand what mixing a song means. You take the instruments and you mix them together so that together they make the song. Mastering is kind of the record version of that. You take 12 songs or whatever, and you make them into a cohesive experience from beginning to end by making sure the levels are all there, the frequency spectrum is similar, and there's just like a whole lot of judgmental things that go into it, because not every record is mastered the same way and needs the same thing. So it's always dependent on the actual song, the composition, and the mix as to what you're going to do. But mastering is also responsible for the amount of time that elapses between songs, and usually when does track 2 switch to track 3, if you were to play a CD or whatever, and all of that extra stuff, the clerical stuff, the metadata, usually falls on the mastering engineer, and it's kind of like quality control, last step of the process, fresh set of ears usually on fresh speakers in a room designed specifically for it. So there's the quality control aspect. So even if it's this mix is great, like I wouldn't change anything. Like that's a worthy opinion to have from somebody. But there's a lot that goes into mixing that might be missed. Like maybe the vocal needs de-essed or something, and that's something that can also be done in mastering. So it's just a whole lot of potential things to happen, but no one like exact this is what it is.
Right, of course. Mastering is a process for each and different song, and you have to figure it out, and it's very tedious sometimes.
Right.
How do you find a fresh pair of ears?
Usually the ideal scenario would be for the mastering engineer to have like a complete fresh perspective on the music by not being a part of it before. So like if you record and mix a song, you hear it played a bunch of times, you hear the demo a bunch of times, you hear every single take, and you just hear the song like 2,000 times or something crazy like that. And then when you mix it, you're just like constantly listening to it, and then when you get to the end, it's hard to like broaden your scope on it. So you're still, when you hear it, you're still thinking about the compression you put on this, the EQ you put on this. Did I do too much to this? You're not really hearing it as the one singular thing that it has become.
You're so narrowed into all the stuff you did to make it sound like that you can't hear it as a whole piece.
It's hard to be objective.
Yeah, so when you're not a part of that process, when you hear that song, you're not thinking about all the small things. You're thinking about the song. Like, what does this song need? And not like, did I have the parallel compression on the drums too loud? Or, is that the right type of reverb for this? Because you have no control over any of that stuff. And it's the first experience of all of it. And then, things play on different speakers different ways. You perceive them in a different room differently.
Really?
Yeah. So just having somebody with a complete new circumstances all around to be the last one to have any sort of effect on that song is really important.
I didn't know that different room settings could, unless I guess. Well, I guess if you don't have in-ears, that would make sense then.
Right.
Do you test them with headphones too?
Yeah, I usually reference on headphones, usually for like spatial things and panning reasons. But I try not to make any like definitive moves wearing headphones.
Mm.
But yeah, that's one easy way to, deal with the not having the room sound. But also, it's important to have a room sound. You just have to have a tamed room sound, like a tailored room sound, to experience music in, because that's the way a lot of music is consumed in a space. There's also a lot of headphones as well, which is why it's important to reference. But I'll do headphones, I'll do Bluetooth headphones, I'll do the car, I'll do on my phone, I'll do the Bluetooth speaker at home, I'll do the stereo at home. So like whenever you reference something, it's important to kind of like get a well-rounded experience on all of the normal systems you have.
So how do you judge when something needs a fix based off the speaker it's played off of?
It could be a bunch of different ways, but usually if you experience the song you're working on a system you're familiar with listening to lots of other things on, like you get to know what things typically sound like on that system. So when you listen to your song and it's just like, something's not quite right, in with all of these other songs that you love to listen to on this system, that's when like you could make some changes. And it's also just like a perspective thing too. When you're sitting, in the studio and you've got your speakers, like, yeah, it's like a great listening environment or whatever, but your perspective is like, I'm working on this, I have control over anything that I want, and you're not really experiencing just the music as well. So just by even like going out to the car and playing the song through my speakers in my car, where I have no ability to tweak the snare drum sound or something right now, it's just like a completely different objective experience.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Good answer.
Good answers. Yeah. So I'm curious, what programs do you recommend for people who might want to just record something at home and then send it over to a professional?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, if it sounds good, it doesn't matter how it was made.
Well, for me, I've always used Pro Tools, and anytime I go in anything else, I feel like a bumbling idiot. But most of them are really good professional quality, and it's all about your mental flow, your actual workflow, what it is you're trying to accomplish. Everything, everything's essentially the same, but does it a little bit differently. So whatever you're comfortable with.
How do you keep yourself how do you get yourself started into a workflow with everything that can distract you nowadays, from your phone, from notifications on the computer, etc.? How do you get yourself isolated from that and into a solid workflow?
It's been a little bit of trial and error, I guess. I've tried putting my phone on airplane mode or charging in another room. We don't really have any notifications that pop up on our computer. Having someone that trusts us to come in and work on their stuff is a gift for sure. So trying to repay that with intention and attention to what we're doing is just the move. And enough to make it work for me typically.
For me, I think it's important to like take small breaks really often. So it's easy to not feel like you're missing out on, whatever it is that is your vice. By, every hour, take a 10-minute break, and it's good for your brain. It's good for your ears. It's good for productivity, and it just, it's not too hard for me to just like, put my phone across the room, or I usually just like flip it upside down, and then like get in the zone for a while. And then when it's time to, take a quick ear break, you can do whatever you want, grab some coffee, check your phone.
Speaking about ear breaks, ear protection is very important. How do you guys keep your ears protected, and that way you can keep the frequency spectrum that you need to work on the music?
I've been forced to be more mindful of that lately because after years of playing, I've noticed a difference in my hearing. Not enough to stop work from coming out well, but like just getting older and noticing that my ears are more sensitive. I would definitely advocate for all younger folk out there listening to just get ahead of it and wear earplugs when you're playing, practicing, attending a show, whatever.
Yeah, I also was not good at it for a long time. I also really didn't enjoy like playing live with, you know, ear protection or of any kind. But you know, lately over the last couple of years, definitely forced myself to figure out how to be comfortable with that. And now there's a big box of earplugs on the shelf. There's a couple of packs of earplugs in the tour box. There's earplugs in every back pocket of every pants I've ever had. There's probably 15 in the dryer right now. They're just everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there was like a stigma years ago, like, oh, it looks so lame wearing earplugs. What? I said it looks, it's not worth losing your hearing over.
It certainly isn't. And they also make they're, more expensive obviously, but they make ones that can take the decibel levels down, but not change the frequency as much. And, I just go for good old fashioned foam ones because I can't be trusted with expensive ones anyway.
Same.
Yeah, I've been forced to buy the decibel ones. They're like $40 at a Guitar Center. But oh my gosh, do they make a great and incredible difference? Because I noticed I had really good hearing when I was a kid. If there are some people, when your phone goes off, it buzzes, right? I would be in the car and someone's phone would go off, buzzing, and I'd be like, "Whose phone is that?" And they'd be like, "What?" And someone's phone is ringing, and they're like, "How in the world did you ever hear that?" Out of from driving in a car, right?
Yeah.
So I know I had good hearing, but now I'm realizing that I'm slowly losing that over, and it's probably because I've been going out to shows for the past year constantly.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean it's like a thing that happens naturally to everybody anyway.
Yeah.
But why make it go quicker if you can keep it at a normal slow pace of hearing loss?
Yeah.
A normal slow pace of hearing loss.
Well, it's the battle for musicians anyway, isn't it?
Totally.
Is the hearing loss, and you got to deal with it. Bach dealt with it by just, the story of no, it's Beethoven who lost his hearing, and one funny story about that is he was conducting a piece of his, and he had to rely on the first violinist to tell him when to stop because he couldn't hear anything. Stop.
No more.
Turn around and bow.
Yeah. Great.
So, I'm curious, what is one thing, you guys have been doing this for 8 years now, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started, or some advice to those who are just starting now?
Everything. For me, it would be never get comfortable, I guess. Because even after all of these years, I still feel like there's something every couple of weeks where I'm I learned something new and I'm so excited about it, and I just show everybody I know, look at this thing that I just learned, it's so cool. And just not to lose that.
Yeah. To hold on to the excitement of learning new things about it, because you're going to keep learning. There's always something new. No one knows everything. Jon's put me on to listening to podcasts with engineers or producers. And it's always cool to hear a new perspective on a way to approach something, or exciting to hear that someone that you admire does something in a similar way that you do, sort of reaffirming. But yeah, I guess basically the same answer is just keep at it, keep growing, keep being curious.
How do you guys deal with burnout? Or do you guys deal with burnout?
I got no time for burnout. I mean, inflation's crazy, bills go up, you got to make it work and figure out a balance that works for yourself so that you can pay your bills and enjoy your time. And that's sort of like an ever-changing equation, I think.
I mean, we definitely have our moments of like, there's so much happening right now. How do we keep up on all this? But for the most part, we just like figured out a way to keep the work-life balance somewhat normal. And it's tough because the schedules are always different. It's not like, we only do, this and then, at 5 o'clock, we're done with everything. Because then there's usually like a band practice or, all kinds of different things to do otherwise. But for the most part, it's just, forcing yourself to have boundaries and giving yourself a break like you deserve to have, not feeling bad if, you take a second day off in a row just to like, enjoy life. I think that's really important.
Yeah, a big one for me personally has been trying to figure out how to schedule work at like a sustainable pace so that it's not like way too much. Or, like if someone hits you up for a session, my initial inclination is always like, all right, what's the next day that I could like possibly have a free second to get this person in? Evolving that thought process to be more like, I'm going to take, that day off. What's your next week like?
Right.
Or whatever. Just trying to pace things at a more sustainable rate to prevent getting burnt out.
That's something I've learned recently because the past week I went at least 1.5 weeks straight of having a guest every single week, and I'm an introvert. I don't know how you guys are.
Introvert.
Yeah.
Introvert. Yeah.
But not only did I have to have the podcast people, so I am meeting strangers that I don't really know that well. It would be different if it was like friends.
Yeah.
But like people I had known for a longer time. But after that, I teach children how to swim. That's like my day job, and so having to deal with like 10 hours of talking to people constantly. Oh my gosh, I was tired, and still I find myself yawning after the fact. Even though I'm gotten like 8 hours of sleep, I'm like just physically and mentally tired.
I definitely get that. It usually comes with, when we're playing out a lot, we have like a bunch of different bands and like we're doing all kinds of stuff. It's not uncommon for me to have a day where it's just like, don't look at the phone, don't talk to me. I'm just going to do what I want. I usually like go on a drive by myself or something and just like absorb things and unwind and, not have to worry about, anything else other than what is, in your head is kind of nice every once in a while.
So did you guys say you guys were introverts?
I guess I'm sort of a mix, but
You have your moments.
yeah.
I'm forever an introvert.
How do you deal with? I guess that's your answer then. How do you deal with being an introvert? Just by forcing yourself to take yourself out of the situation?
I think what we do, I sort of feel like if I didn't do this, I would be way more of an introvert. But a lot of times, this does force me to get out of my, comfort zone and do things that I wouldn't normally do, and make friends that I wouldn't normally make because I wouldn't be in those situations. So it is kind of nice, and I think about it all the time, especially with playing in a band. You go out and you meet other people, you meet other bands, you experience things that you probably wouldn't have otherwise, and that's one of the reasons why this is an important part of my life, is it forces me to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you wholeheartedly. When I was in college, I had my roommate, and he would literally drag me out to events. And if it hadn't been for that, I probably would have been doing this podcast, dragging other people out to talk about their life, because talking is a lot of energy for an introvert.
Yeah,
It is.
definitely.
So it's always been a lot of fun to grab people, and it's always funny that it always seems to be the introverts know where to go if they want to be an introvert. It's always the music engineers. It's always the like lighting tech. It's It's always the people that aren't the front man.
Yeah, behind the scenes folks.
Yeah, that's why you never went. It was funny. I went to Roots and Blues. Did you guys go to Roots and Blues over the weekend?
I did.
I did not.
Oh,
I was out of town.
Well, it was awesome, and I went. So I'm trying to collect business cards, because Roots and Blues. There's a bunch of musicians going on everywhere, and I want to talk to them all. However, there's also the other aspect of the lighting technicians. But whenever I went up to them, they're like, "Stay away from me. I can't be bothered."
Good on them. Sometimes you got to protect your space.
Yeah, no, for real though.
Even if it's from a friendly, non-threatening source.
No, I'm with you there because some days people come up to me. I've had This has been a new phenomenon for me. A bunch of strangers that I do not know, like legitimately, will come up to me. Like, oh, I saw you on the podcast. I'm like, awesome, but
see you on the podcast. Yeah.
So how do you guys, what are some future projects and plans for you guys? Do you have any artists that you are especially excited to work with?
Beach Dream.
Beach Dream.
Beach Dream.
Is that all you can say about that?
Beach Dream.
Beach Dream.
Is that a band or an album? Okay.
It's a band that we love working with. We put out a couple songs with them, I guess last year at this point. And they have some plans to come back and work on some new ones. They're great guys, really talented. They love food as much as us. Lunchtime is always exciting. That's probably close to the top of my list. Also, Shaw Calhoun. He's a hip-hop artist from Silver Springs, Maryland that we've been working with. Yeah. He's coming back to do some more work with us. I'm a super big fan of his stuff, so that's got me excited.
What about you, John?
Same.
I'm
just going to go with same.
One of the bands that I really love is For the River.
Hey.
You guys have started working with them on their Dave Matthews project?
Dave Matthews Dads. Making me sad.
Yeah, they've been fun to work with. I've known some of them for a very long time, and the rest of them for a very short time, but they've been real fun to work with, and they've kind of challenged themselves to release a single every month.
Yeah.
So they've been, figuring out the best way to do that while, also being husbands and boyfriends, dads,
Dave Matthews Dads.
Working full-time jobs, but they've been killing it. They usually figure out every song has been a little different. Like we've done some drums for some of it. We did, I guess, the most of the one song, but for the most part, it's just little stuff here and there. They'll come in on, for a couple of hours an evening and do some vocals, and yeah, it's been fun to watch them meet their challenge and kill it. I just saw the other day they made it to 10,000 Spotify listeners.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, that's as people who work with bands, they are a great example of a band who's pushing their stuff and promoting really well and building their following. Seeing that kind of number for a band that we're recording is exciting because that means that our work is getting out to a lot of ears.
Yeah.
I think it's a good example of what I mentioned earlier about, not obsessing on small things and end up not releasing stuff. They gave themselves a challenge to release a single a month, and I don't know if they're like to the day, but excuse me, but at least like, to the month they've been cranking them out. And
yeah, it's always been fun to set challenges for yourself. Once upon a time, I did a music challenge where I had to create a song within 2 weeks. So the first week would be based on lyrics, and the second week would be just based on music. And forcing myself to pump those out and be okay with the not okayness of putting out a song has really opened my mind to that. Have you guys ever done a challenge like that for yourselves, or?
I've told myself that I was going to set a challenge like that just to be more productive and haven't. I admire people who do, though, because, releasing music is a really vulnerable experience.
Oh, for sure.
So forcing yourself to just like jump out of the plane and do it is pretty amazing, I think.
As far as that goes, I haven't really done anything lately, and I've never given myself a challenge. But usually if I write something, it like, lives and dies in my brain, on my hard drive kind of thing. But, it's a very vulnerable thing, and it's one that I am not comfortable going into alone. So I usually like to have some sort of collaborative effort and some sort of like immediate validation that, what I'm doing isn't completely stupid.
Yeah, it's really scary to be in that tunnel, like you're writing and composing and, tweaking this song without, in a lot of cases, without any outside perspective or whatever. So the idea of then just like throwing it out into the light for the world to be like, this is horrible, or like, thank you, this is great. It's going to go some way.
I've never released anything that was 100% me, but kind of the thought of it is terrifying. I kind of liken it to like, the classic dream where you're in the classroom in just your underwear sort of thing.
Yeah.
I imagine it would feel like that, and that's not something I'm willing to do at this point.
It's scary because you can get involved in the numbers and all that jazz, and then it's a spiral and a half that you can get into.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, for me, it's like terrifying if everybody loves it, and it's terrifying if nobody loves it. It's terrifying if people are indifferent.
Why is it terrifying if people love it?
Why aren't you liking it? Why are you hating on it? Why is nothing happening?
Right. It's because of who I am as a person.
Right. It's overthinking is a dangerous job for a musician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you have to do a lot, some overthinking to an extent just to have some kind of artistic perspective or narrative. You know what I mean? That involves a little bit of overthinking, but knowing where the line is, when you're crossing and just like not being productive or like obsessing or just like holding yourself back with it.
I think a little bit of overthinking is just normal thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Overthinking is more thinking than some
That's
really arrive at.
And now the word thinking sounds funny because we've said it so many times.
because thinking about it. Well, I mean, because you have to think through all of these different obstacles or things that can happen, because it's that's just smart marketing if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. You want to consider what you're doing.
Yeah, see, there you go. You want to consider what you're doing.
Yeah, not to like the point where you're paralyzing yourself or, to the detriment of just putting out honest art.
Think, thought, and thought some more. So what are some of the most complex things that you've ever worked on? Do you guys mess around with like polymeter or polyrhythm, stuff like that? Or just some really cool experimental synth sounds, stuff like that?
For me, I have a drum machine sampler. I don't know if you're familiar with the Akai MPCs.
I am.
I have an MPC 1000, MPC 2000 XL, and MPC 5000. And all of those have sort of changed the way I hear any sound. Being able to sample, and these machines offer such a flexibility that you can turn something into almost anything. So that's sort of been my diving into, like, all right, what can I do? What's a crazy experiment? What can I make out of this thing that doesn't resemble it at all? I think Jon has a lot more experience with our plugins, and
that's my realm.
Yeah.
What's this button do? What's this plugin do? What if I turn this to 100?
Yeah. I mean, just sitting and taking time with all of the tools at our disposal and seeing what happens has been that, I guess.
It's all about if you have like a what if scenario, just trying it, whether it seems stupid or somebody says there's no way that can work. It's all about just trying it and knowing, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, that actually is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's almost always worth trying.
That, and I'm sure there's like, this is not an exact thing, but I'm sure like one thing in every song ever has like an accidental thing. Like, that's not what I try to do, but that's pretty cool. And that stuff doesn't happen unless you're trying anything.
You've probably experienced that with your own setup.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
happy accidents. You're like, okay, let's keep that.
It's like Bob Ross. Just a little happy accident.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Couldn't do it again if I tried, but like,
Right.
it's there, so let it alone.
So, you guys also managed and toured with bands in the high school. What was that like?
For me, it was just outside of high school. I went on tour with this band from Pittsburgh called Punchline, who have remained really good friends of mine. This was back in '06. And it was kind of like a last minute thing where like I was a fan of the band. I had their latest record, and I heard they were going on tour the next day from a friend who heard it from a friend from a friend. You know that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'll call them. I'll see you. You know, I'll see if they'll take me along. And somehow they did, and I left that night. It was a pretty fun experience. The first couple that I did, I just sold merch, so my responsibilities were that of a merchandiser anywhere really. And then after that, I did take over the tour managing duties as well. And it's just all about organization and sparing no detail on anything. So a couple days in advance, I would call the promoter and confirm load-in times, riders, whatever, what the guarantee was. And then at the end of the night, I made sure that the band got paid and everything was, loaded out. And it's just it was a real good time.
Awesome. Well, we're kind of ending out our time, so I have some general questions for you guys. If you guys had one song from your entire playlist for people to listen to, what would it be?
That is a tough one.
Give me top 3, maybe top 5.
High heels. I drive a hearse.
Wow, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you keep taking this one.
Can I pull up our playlist real quick just
you can pull up your
for
playlist and I'll cover the time.
a little bit of something to lean on here?
Yeah, man. So
There's been so many things over the years. Even sometimes, plugging in an old hard drive to find something, and it's just like you see all the stuff that you worked on years ago that just like a refresher takes you back.
Yeah. Donut Dipper by Hilltop Gamblers.
That's a good one. Classic.
This is really tough to do on the spot.
That's why I'm making you do it.
By Zero Mission by Fragile Like Life After. If the name of the song has...
Nah.
Okay.
Just tell me the artist. How about that one?
You, Me, and Everyone We Know.
You meet everyone we know.
Yeah, one of our band's songs, I would say, is a great one that I would want everyone to hear.
It's got a curse word in it, so you'll find it.
It do.
It do.
Mystic Chain Park by Traffic Nightmare.
That's 5. There you go. How about artists, the top artists that influence you guys as engineers?
Overall, you mean?
Overall.
Man, that's a tough one too.
Third Eye Blind for their self-titled record. It's the first CD I ever bought. Favorite album of all time. Love the production. Love the performances. Love the songwriting. Huge influence on the way I hear everything.
I'll stick with a comparable one for me would be The Spade by Butch Walker. I just like really love the songwriting, the style, the like vibe of, doing it live and just pretty much everything about it.
Awesome. So what are some mistakes that you guys have made or you've seen other bands make that you could say that, so in order that we don't make those same mistakes again?
Man, should have gave us a list of these before coming in. For me, it would probably be understanding that there is no definite, like nothing is definite. Like there's no one way to do something. There's no wrong way to do something. If it sounds good, it sounds good. And just, accepting, when you learn something, it is not definitively the way. Because that's when you get stale. You kind of don't progress as a person or as an engineer or as a musician when it's just like, I do this because this is the way it's done. It's just, it never is like that. It's, helpful guides, but never the way.
My answer is basically the same. The practice of staying open to possibilities and whatever happens around, going with the flow and really being all about the journey as opposed to a destination, because there is no destination. The destination is the journey. So yeah, trying to be present and open to what comes your way on the spot. I believe the universe takes you where you're supposed to go. So just enjoy the ride.
It's like every step of the process is more of like a critical thinking thing than like a checklist thing. So, deciding, what it is to best get you from where you are to where you need to be next is, just keeping that mindset at literally every step of the way.
Oh, with all that said, this has been the Kaleidoscope on the podcast. If you want to check out their work or hit them up, please do check the links in the description. We have their Facebook, we have their Spotify playlist to check out all the stuff that they've worked on. And if you really want to support us or follow us, you can follow me at the Story Podcast, Corey Rosen. That's CoryRosen. You can follow that on all streaming platforms and on Facebook. If you go on Facebook and our Instagram, _story_podcast, you can find out all of our future guests. We have some future guests coming on in the future at some point. Now I'm having to pull myself
Future
out.
guests coming on in the future.
Yeah. We have a guy named Ethan Horning. He's a awesome DJ that I have had the pleasure to work with. He's coming on this Saturday at 3. And I might also have another guest coming on that, you guys know Bobby Gentello?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an awesome dude, awesome guitarist, man. And I think I might be having him that Saturday as well at 6 o'clock. We'll see how that pans out.
The future man.
Future man on future days. With all that said, if you really want to support us, you can share, like, subscribe, and you can, if you're feeling really generous, you can help us out with buying merchandise. We have stickers, and we have shirts and hoodies with the logo on the front and the first 50 guests, including the Kaleidoscope, on the back. With all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you guys whenever. Bye.
Thank you.
In the future.
In the future with future guests.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Can I get a picture with you guys?
Of course.
Cool, man. If you guys want the video and all that jazz, let me know, and I'll send it over to you guys and splice it up however you guys you want.
Cool. Well, I would say just link us whenever there's something shareable for us to share.
Oh, it's shareable right now.
Well, then share. Right on.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it, man. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.